National title number 55 feels right in 2025. And with Dez Bryant now on the Hall of Fame ballot, what Cowboys should be next? And without any Ollie Gordon or Nick Martin level All-Americans entering the season, let's take a peek at some Cowboys who could be the top 10 entering the season.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your top stop for all of your Cowboy and Cowgirl information. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Oldeo State. Today, we're partially brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more, especially right now when new customers can get square today with FanDuel's $200 back in bonus bets when your first $5 bet is a winner. Get in on the NBA playoff action and cut down the nets with the Thunder while also capitalizing in the banking department. Go to FanDuel.com today. Meanwhile, we shift right into the conversation of Cowboy football entering the season. Of course, the marketability aspect of having a preseason All-American like an Ollie Gordon or a Nick Martin or even to some degree a Colin Oliver entering the season, it does add a national layer of respect to some degree. Oklahoma State obviously does not have that with Nick Martin onto the NFL alongside Ollie Gordon and Colin Oliver. So this is definitely a new roster. This is a new beginning. This is a new team. You could almost call this a rebuild for Mike Gundy's standards. And Mike Gundy's standards are to get us back to where we're supposed to be. 8 to 10 win range is comfortably where Mike Gundy has positioned us historically to have expectations. So just because there's no national expectations doesn't mean that there's not going to be some breakout Cowboys. It is absolutely inevitable whenever you bring in this kind of staff and bring in the levels of talent that we have. When you look at the recruiting portal or recruiting windows, certifications, we're a top 25 class because this coaching staff is bringing those level dudes in. And the developmental side of the game is already enhanced dramatically over the last couple seasons. So with those couple things in mind, I figured we'll take a peek at some of the individuals that likely should be on the list to be, top 10 Cowboys throughout the course of the season. All right, so we're going to start off here with UCLA cornerback transfer Jalen Davies, rocking number 2 in your programs at 5'11", 185 pounds, originally from the powerhouse of modern day. One of the top recruits in the country, ends up at Oregon, transfers to UCLA, comes in with 108 tackles, 4 picks, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble return, and 2 tackles for loss. We absolutely have to have somebody that can step in and fill the void of Corey Black. There were times last season where Corey Black had some underwhelming moments. Jalen Davies looked pretty solid at UCLA. Hopefully he can transition to that in the Stillwater, Oklahoma. Next up, I got wide receiver Io Shotomide King, rocking number 9. Yeah, last year he, 5 for 48, maybe not all that impressive. 37 for 438 the year prior in JUCO is pretty impressive, including a 161-yard game. We haven't seen the best of Io Shotomide King. My personal opinion, I thought we maybe wasted a redshirt year on him this previous season because he didn't even get utilized for the last couple weeks. Nonetheless, this could be his season. And clearly the staff has identified a bunch of 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" style of guys, and not only recruiting, but in the transfer portal department. You bring in Cam Abshire at 6'4". You bring in Christian Kirkpatrick at 6'4". You have Io Shotomide King at almost 6'5", 225 pounds. I've been saying he is the more physically gifted version of Leon Johnson III this season that should be able to show out. Next up is going to be Stillwater High School's own Josh Ford, rocking number 40, 6'6", 260 pounds, tight end, just under 100 yards this previous season on 10 receptions. But it was more about seeing what he could potentially be, right? And there was some instances within the season that he was kind of nicked up, banged up. That's part of going through playing time in the Power 4 level as a freshman, is you're going to have to, deal with the adversity of the injuries and deciding whether you're hurt or injured, and is there a differentiation, and how do you determine that? Josh Ford dealt with all that this previous season, but he showed us glimpses of what a true tight end could potentially look like once again in Stillwater, Oklahoma. He's also utilized to some degree in special teams, thrown in a tackle, definitely had a return for like 6-7 yards, and he threw a touchdown in the mix in the receiving department as well. Next up on the list, you could have gone one way or the other here. I don't think you could have gone wrong either way. I went with Haas Haney as opposed to Zane Flores. Why? Because number 4, at least right now, he's number 4. He has an affinity for number 8, and with Maluake Smith leaving in the portal, there's a good possibility Haas Haney does go back to number 8, but he might rock with the J.W. Walsh number this season. If so, I think he's going to be a problem. Even if we end up rolling out a 2-quarterback system, the 5'11", 195-pound running back, he did have some rushing yards last year at TCU. He comes in with 5,021 passing yards in high school to go alongside almost 2,500 rushing yards and almost 80 touchdowns. So athletically, everybody knows what Haas Haney can do. It's a different thing knowing what he can do and actually physically being on the field. It's the same thing as Tyreek Hill. Now, he's not quite Tyreek Hill fast, but for a quarterback, his elusivity and speed is going to be something that catches people off guard. I think that Haas Haney is an individual, whether he's QB1, QB2, he should have the ability to rush for 400 or 500 yards this season if he's utilized in, an RPO spread attack style of offense. I think it makes sense. I think you could have gone with Zane Flores here, but I like what Haas Haney brings to the field because he's going to play no matter what. Even if Zane wins QB1, Haas is way too electrifying, way too good of an athlete to not be on the field. And speed kills. This should be the idea for the offense moving forward, is utilize the speed that we have. Speaking of speed, we're going to go with Rodney Fields right next to him, rocking number 20. Just shy of 100 yards rushing this previous season. When you factor in the receiving yards, he did get over 100 yards, 11.5 yards receiving, coming in, which is at 4.7 yards per completion, right? But or carry. He came in with 3,147 yards in high school with another 1,105 yards receiving and 55 touchdowns. We saw little glimpses of what he could be last year, right? Reminiscent of a young Justice Hill. If he can have the maturation process comparable to Justice Hill, year 2 could be absolutely massive for Rodney Fields. And we just talked about speed killing. If you have Haas Haney and Rodney Fields and Caleb Hicks and Zane Flores all at your disposal, plus the wide receivers like Lloyd's going to be able to run up and down the field with anybody in the country. The speed that we have should be able to kind of show out this season. Speaking of speed, how about on the defensive side of the ball, Zaquan Patterson? Now, I know he's not like 100% rolled yet, so he doesn't have a number yet, but this individual comes in after playing quite a bit as a freshman at Miami with 19 tackles, 2 pass breakups. This idea that he's only going to be relegated to one specific area, I think is a little foolhardy. He could have the ability to play at a multitude of areas. All right, coming in, he had 121 receptions out of high school, 194 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 55 sacks, 12 interceptions, 100-plus return yards. He's a jack of all trades, and more importantly, the Miami coach came out and said that he is the most sure tackling freshman he's ever seen, let alone ever coached. So I think if Zaquan Patterson can bring that here, plus his multiple years of eligibility, that could be absolutely massive for Oklahoma State this season, and we're going to need help in the secondary. Next up, we have another transfer from a UTEP, number 33, rocking the Kyron Duhon. Gets the old Obi Ezegbo number at 6'1", 255 pounds. He comes in with 106 tackles, 9 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 44 tackles for loss, 7 sacks as a freshman. And he was a freshman All-American nationally. He was a very big get. A lot of SEC and Big Ten schools were on his tail, and he committed to Oklahoma State pretty quickly. And it seems as though he's making a name for himself pretty early on in Stillwater. Another dude that has been making a name for himself, maybe slowly, but it's surely coming on, is number 99, Iman Oates from up the road at NEO. The 6'3", 305-pound defensive lineman. Last season had 25 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. After coming in to JUCO with 69 tackles, 19 tackles for loss, 8 sacks, turning down Oregon State, Virginia, Boise, Wazoo, several other places to become an Oklahoma State Cowboy. And we talked about people showing glimpses last season, much like Rodney Fields. Iman Oates showed glimpses last year of being a very big production individual as a tackle. And now with Justin Kirkland being gone, I think his role is going to be expanded even more. And now the expectations of him are also going to increase. We talked about the speed that kills. Well, in my opinion, You have to have somebody that's going to be able to offset that. You have to have a power dude. That dude is Trent Howland. Trent Howland, rocking number 24, comes in at 6'3", 245 pounds, 616 yards rushing collegiately, 5 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns, and an additional 30 yards receiving. Obviously, a couple years ago, he was a leading rusher at Indiana. We have to have the Thunder and Lightning package, and with Jaden Allen Hendricks going down, you have to have a reliable individual that you can tote the rock at the end of ball games, right? Those 4th and 1, bleed the clock scenarios to win a game. You're going to have to rely on somebody like a Trent Howland. So maybe he doesn't get all the fun, fancy, sexy stats. Maybe he doesn't rush for 1,200 yards. Maybe Rodney Fields does. But maybe Trent Howland is the most pivotal offensive piece when it comes to controlling a game and winning it when it matters. And with a very young team that is, by and large, put together of a good amount of transfers, his mainstay in the culture is going to be imperative to the success, in my opinion, this season. Another individual that is hopefully just scratching the surface of what he could potentially be, rocking a wide receiver number, a defensive end, is going to be Deshaun Brown, number 87. Another 6'3", 275-pound individual last season had 22 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and 1.5 sacks, right? The story with Deshaun Brown was more about, what almost was. He was so close to so many sacks. He was so close to so many TFLs. He was so close to being a massive disruptive force in the backfield. Yet for whatever reason, he was, more often than not, a few inches here, a couple inches here, away from making those massive plays. So I think if you look at Deshaun Brown, kind of like, the older version of Trace Ford, he's got more than enough raw potential to be an NFL guy. He's got the speed, he's got the strength, he's got the athleticism. I mean, the dude's put on a considerable amount of weight in his time at Oklahoma State. He had a good competition going back and forth last year with Jaleel Johnson. Now Jaleel Johnson moving more to that pseudo linebacker style of role. It opens up a path for Deshaun Brown. And another intriguing point of all this is all the conversations I've had, it seems pretty commonplace that the staff identified players on this roster that could start today or at worst case scenario by the end of the season rolling into next season. So the years of the developmental 3, 4, 5-year guy, those are pretty much dead. And so some of the individuals that we encouraged to enter the portal or we cut off the roster, some of those developmentally were on their way to being contributors or possibly starters. It just wasn't going to be fast enough. So when you think of a guy like a Deshaun Brown, if they didn't feel like he was going to be a massive contributor this season, then they likely would have told him what they told an exorbitant number of dudes, which is, yeah, you're probably going to play, but we don't know how much, and we're still going to bring in more guys at your position to compete with you, so maybe it's best that you explore other areas. We didn't do that with Deshaun Brown. And Deshaun Brown does have a connection with Ryan Osborne. Ryan recruited him when he was in high school. So I think part of that is going to be imperative for this defense to kind of be able to cut their teeth this season. This is a decent mix of some returning Cowboys and a lot of transfer Cowboys. I think you could throw somebody like Brian McCoy into this mix as well. High draft grade, coming out of Akron, is going to have the opportunity. Trip White could be on here. So we're probably going to have to do this again. But nonetheless, I wanted to throw this list together. And I also wanted to talk about some potential Hall of Fame stuff. We know that Dez Bryant is now on the ballot, but that number of only 6 playing Cowboys and 2 coaches was, kind of surprising to me. So we did a little bit of digging here. Speaking of doing some digging, maybe you should do some digging to help your bank account with the NBA playoffs being in full swing. The finals are here. The Thunder are going to win it, all right? And every night's going to deliver highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and cannot-miss moments, whether it's in-game winning shots or just a breakout player that you feel like is about to do something crazy. There's not a better time or a better place for you to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy for you to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. What would it look like to combine the live prop bets mid-game based on how the action is unfolding? What players do you think are about to show up biggest in the biggest moments? And how could a $200 bonus in bets add to the excitement of your betting? Things are heating up, so why not back it all up with the same game parlay? Get squared away today with FanDuel. It's the perfect time for you to sign up. Head on over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it's a winner, you'll get $200 back in bonus bets. Make every moment matter more with FanDuel because you already know the Thunder are doing the daggone thing, and FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Dez Bryant is on the Hall of Fame ballot. And in doing some of the research of that, okay, of course, it's logical. It makes sense that Dez Bryant is on the ballot. But then it got me wondering, well, how are there only 6 players on the Hall of Fame? Barry Sanders, the GOAT, of course, that makes sense. Thurman Thomas would be the GOAT at most schools. So that naturally makes sense. Somebody like Bob Fenimore, that should be pretty easy, but he's not on it. That was surprising. Justin Blackmon is on it. Okay, so what are some of the other individuals that have played at Oklahoma State that are good enough to be in a Hall of Fame situation? Mason Rudolph, from a yards perspective, from a wins perspective, you could definitely make that argument that Mason is Hall of Fame worthy. I think when you look at some of the things that we've seen out of the wide receiver position, James Washington, did he do enough to be a Hall of Famer? In college, well, probably. Right? Justin Blackmon got in after being a 2-time Blitnikoff Award winner. Well, James Washington was also a Blitnikoff Award winner. James Washington is also one of the greatest wide receivers that have ever run through the halls of Oklahoma State. But then you have to remember that in order to be a Hall of Famer, at one point in time in your career, you had to be a consensus first-team All-American. So let's go over the consensus first-team All-Americans at Oklahoma State, because some of them aren't on this list that are going to be a surprise. Of course, Justin Blackmon, 2-time consensus first-team All-American. He's already in the Hall. Levy Adcock, 2011 first-team All-American. Rod Brown, 1984 first-team All-American. Of course, Dez Bryant, All-American in 2028, would have been again likely in 2029 if his season hadn't been screwed over by Deion Sanders and the NCAA. Then you have Hartley Dykes, 1988, first team, consensus, All-American. Bob Fenimore, first team, consensus, 1945. Should have won the Heisman if it weren't for the political narratives. And guys, this is the same reason that we were awarded the national championship of 1945, because all of the voting was done on the coast. Nobody watched Oklahoma State. Nobody watched any team from the Midwest ever. All of the voters were media, and all of the media was on the West Coast. So, yeah, if they're going to make that right, they need to make something else right here for Bob Fenimore. Nonetheless, Justin Gilbert. Justin Gilbert was a 2013 first-team consensus All-American. Darryl Goforth was as well in 1976. Ollie Gordon, 2023. Chuba Hubbard, 2019. Kendall Hunter, 2010. Alonzo Mays, the big bad tight end, first-team consensus All-American in 1997. Terry Miller, another phenomenal GOAT-worthy performance level running back. He is not in the Hall. And he was a first-team consensus All-American in 1977. Russell Okung, first-team consensus All-American in 2009. Leslie O'Neal, first-team consensus All-American 1985. Barry Sanders, 88. Thurman Thomas, 85. John Ward, O-lineman, 1969. James Washington, of course, and Rashawn Woods. You could and should make the argument that some guys like Bob Fenimore, Leslie O'Neal, Hartley Dykes probably already should be in the Hall. But the most egregious out of all of those to me was Rashawn Woods. I mean, Rashawn Woods is always going to be remembered for Bedlam, of course, right? He's going to hold that level of mystique in Cowboy lore. But even beyond that, I think you could look at what he did as a travesty that he's not in the Hall. Consensus All-American 2022. First team All-American again in 2023. Two-time first team All-Big 12er. 3 1,000-plus yard seasons, 1,200 yards, 1,400 yards, 1,600 yards. He runs the gamut there. Number 3 in Big 12 single-season receptions history with 107. Number 5 in Big 12 single-season yards history with 1,695. Number 10 in Big 12 single-game TDs, which was 7. He's number 1 in Big 12 single-game receptions with that. Number 5 in Big 12 career receptions with 293. Number 3 in Big 12 career yardage with 4,414. Number 2 in Big 12 history with career TDs with 42. Number 19 in Big 12 career history on TDs. Number 30 in all of the NCAA history for receptions. He's number 9 in the NCAA all-time in career yards. He's number 9 all-time in career touchdowns in NCAA history. He's number 35 single-season TDs in NCAA history. So not only is he an Oklahoma State legend, he is clearly one of the best to ever play in the Big 12. And nationally, he ranks in the top 5, top 10, top 25, top 30 in so many different categories that when you look at some of the wide receivers that have been inducted into the Hall of Fame, a decent amount of them pale in comparison to Dez Bryant. But Dez Bryant really only got to shine nationally one season. Rashawn Woods was doing it over and over again. Not only that, Rashawn Woods was doing it when Oklahoma State was just barely on the come up. I think Dez Bryant gets the benefit of playing alongside guys like Zach Robinson and Brendan Pettigrew and Kendall Hunter. But Rashawn Woods didn't have all that. Rashawn Woods did more with less, and he's still not in the Hall of Fame. So out of some of the names that we just discussed, the most egregious to me right here, right now, if we're talking in the same breath as Dez Bryant, well, who does more than Dez Bryant? Rashawn Woods. And then if you went and looked at some of the Big 8 historical stuff, there could be and should be an argument for Hartley Dykes. But when you play with Barry and Thurman and Gundy, having that, statistical prowess may be a little bit more difficult. But the statistical prowess of Rashawn Woods equals him being a surefire Hall of Famer right now. So let me know down in the comment section for all you fine YouTube folks out here. Who do you think off that consensus first team All-American list should be a National Hall of Famer for college football? Speaking of Hall of Famers, Alan Bratton, he's trying. If he's not already there, he's trying to get there pretty quickly. Cowboy Golf has won their national title, which brings the total at Oklahoma State to 54. And what's funny? People were saying, oh, it's golf. Who cares? Ironically, OU fans were all about it when they were playing us in golf for a chance to go to the national title, but then they completely forgot about it. And then when you look at the overall national championship leaders, you're talking about the UCLA and Stanfords of the world, but Oklahoma State gets crap for having so many national titles in golf and wrestling. Yet the people who lead us have them in swimming and water polo and diving and ice skating and things of that nature. That Olympic level sports, they are important. I think it's super cool. But anybody who's given Oklahoma State a hard time for winning so many national championships in golf and wrestling are clearly not paying attention to these Olympic level sports that Oklahoma State, by and large, doesn't have. And we don't have any plans to have them. We're not going to come up with a swimming team or a water polo team or a volleyball team anytime soon, seemingly. So we're essentially keeping pace with those Olympic level national championship inducing universities without having all of those additional sports. And I think those sports are important. Just like I think the sport of golf is important. I think sport of wrestling is important. And I think both of those growing a bigger following is it's good for all sports. And it does give more avenues for young athletes that require a little less physical strain on your body and potential for injuries. So now with national title number 54, and I misspoke a couple times talking about this. I said that we had 4 freshmen and a sophomore. I had it backwards. I guess it was 4 sophomores and a freshman or something to that effect. Nonetheless, this is a young team with almost everybody returning. Plus, we have a massive addition that is coming up as a freshman that got top 20 in the latest Pro-Am event. So does that mean national championship number 55 is just an inevitability in 2025? I mean, you don't want to get ahead of your skis and say it's a done deal, but it feels right. It feels like it might be. It also feels like this is the perfect time. Let me know down in the comments section if there's another sport other than golf that you think we could win a national championship in 2025. I think that tennis could be a possibility. Softball may have some work to do. Baseball's got a long way to go. Wrestling, that's a possibility. Equestrian, I know it's not sanctioned by the NCAA, so it doesn't come with the same level of respect, but there are some other sports out here. Let me know. Who do you think will win the next national championship, and will it be an official national title recognized by the NCAA like they do for golf? Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere, so happy you choose to be here. We're going to talk about some quarterbacks that have joined the fold in the next episode. Until then, that's all. You know the drill. Hit the likes, the subscribes, the shares, the follows, all of that fun jazz. My podcast and people out there. You're everything that makes this tick, click, move, go. Call it what you want to call it. Do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave a review. All right, y'all. Later, my taters.